Hello and welcome. I'm Lucia Rahilly, Editorial Director at McKinsey & Company, and your host for this series of live webinars sponsored by the Global Thought Leadership Institute at APQC. Quick note before we start. This series is designed to give you the opportunity to engage with a range of experts and practitioners in the field of thought leadership today. We hold these webinars on a monthly cadence typically, and you can see our roster by following the GTLI on LinkedIn or by visiting our beautiful brand new website, gtli.org. You can also take a look at past webinars there or on our YouTube channel by searching for at GTLI-APQC. As always, we would love, 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 love for this session to be as interactive as possible. We always want to make these sessions as useful and genuinely audience back as we can. But this is, of course, particularly true given today's topic, which is customer centricity. So we invite you, please send along your questions using the Zoom chat functionality, and I will do my best within my skill set to field as many of them as possible. So today, Stephen Timme, founder and president of FinListics Solutions. FinListics helps enterprise sales organizations better show the business and financial benefits of their solutions and more effectively engage with client executives. Stephen is also, appropriately for us, the author of the Amazon bestseller Insight-Led Selling, Adopt an Executive Mindset, Build Credibility, and Communicate with Impact. And very nicely, selfishly, I will say he is one of my fellow board members of the board of the Global Thought Leadership Institute. Stephen, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Lucia. How are you this morning? And hope everyone is doing well on this very sunny day in Atlanta, Georgia, where I live.
And it's also sunny in New York City and beautiful temperate weather after an interval of gray misery. So we're enjoying it while it lasts, which is going to be a couple more days.
All right.
Stephen, um, what you do day to day is a little bit different from what some of us, at least on the GTLI board, do. Developing thought leadership for large organizations is what some of us do. But that's, you do something a bit different. So give us a little bit of context about yourself, your background,
Yep.
and what it is that you do.
Yeah. So at FinListics, what we do is we help really B2B organizations. We work a lot in the technology area, but it's also products, et cetera. But anything in the B2B space is, how do you, first of all, how do you call hire? Because everyone's trying to call hire, right? And then, now for major decisions, I think Gartner said there's 10 plus stakeholders. So how do you talk to new stakeholders? Let's say I'm used to talking to supply chain, I'm used to talking to IT. And then being a finance type, how do you much earlier in what I like to call the buying cycle, not a sales cycle, but a buying cycle, say, if we could do for you like we've done for others, it'd be worth X number of millions of dollars. So it's really to help them better communicate. And then in a previous life, I was a professor of finance at Emory University, the
Mhm.
Gosweda Business School here in Atlanta, where I live. Love being a professor, but decided to do something different.
Interesting. Okay, now let's get a little bit into your research and the problem that you just described and that you've set
Hmm.
out to solve, which relates directly to what most of us are trying to achieve in developing thought leadership. So, for many years, delivering ROI, or at least measuring ROI by thought
Right.
leadership, has been an elusive goal. We saw our fellow board members, IBM's Cindy Anderson and Anthony Marshall, publish a book to help codify
Hmm.
an approach to that last year. You have made the case for a more customer back approach, arguing that sales don't lag for want of effort, but rather that there's a kind of misalignment between how organizations sell and how executives actually buy. So talk to us about that, what it means, and what
Yeah.
does that misalignment really look like in most companies today?
Yeah, and so we've done some research. There's other research out there that if you say, okay, look, this revenue organization is truly client customer centric, however you want to define it. Well, first of all, what does that even mean? Well, I
Right.
understand, what are they trying, what are their business priorities, right? What are some of the industry influences that are impacting their overall performance? How do the individual stakeholders, so Lucia, you and I could be, let's say we're a retailer and the goal is to grow revenues by expanding e-commerce,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, I'm in supply chain. I'm looking at things like, well, how do I have quicker delivery? What are my on-time deliveries? What are my logistics costs as a percentage of revenues? And you're in marketing, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, let's come up with some unique offerings. What's our take rate? What's the return on? So we're aligned with the same goal, right? But how you're thinking about the business and I'm thinking about the business are two different things. So part of customer centric is not just, oh, the company wants to grow e-commerce, but how do you think about it? How do I think about it? How do our friends in merchandising think about it? So
Mm-hmm.
it's really saying, what are their priorities? Um, what are the industry influences? And being a finance type, well, how are they doing financially? Because that influence, that really drives a lot of things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how are they doing financially? And then ultimately, how do our solutions, our offerings align with those priorities? And how can we help them take it to the next level? So having said that, we do all kinds of research, and what we find, other companies find, only about 20% of the revenue organizations out there are truly customer centric. A lot of people say it, and whenever I hear that, okay, we're customer centric, I'll say, hey, let me see your account plan. Oh, wow. You talk about the renewal, you talk about selling this. Where's something about their priorities? Well, so the,
Right.
the
Right.
reality
If you
is,
ask 10 companies, I'm sure at least 9 out of 10 would claim to be
oh,
customer
claim to
centric.
be.
We all say we're customer centric,
Of,
even
of,
as
of
we're
course.
inside out in the way that we,
Oh, yeah,
right?
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what we found. About 30 something percent of companies still lead with product. We're in
Hmm.
130 countries. We've got 80% of the Fortune 500, blah, blah, blah. Okay, do you know what I'm trying to get done? Do you understand that? So,
Right.
yeah, so I'm on this mission, and it is a mission to say, look, it's really not that hard, but quit talking it and actually start doing it. And so I tell our clients, look, I'm your customer's advocate. That's what I'm doing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking about it, right? It's a good shift. So obviously being customer centric feels like the sine qua non of everything that we do. Yet, as you said, most companies are product led. In
Correct.
that context, walk us through what the key elements of being customer centric look like in practice.
Okay, yeah. And I say this, and one of the reasons I'm saying is I lived the other side. And in fact, this is a number of years ago. I was with one of my clients, and being a finance type, I know a number of CFOs and all that. And they said, hey, can you get us a meeting with this CFO? And I'm like, yeah. So we go there. It's a rather large automotive manufacturer in Detroit. And I won't say it's only got two letters in their name. I won't even, one of them is G, and that's as most I'm going to tell you. All right. And so we go in and, we do the introductions. They were going to kind of like do their thing, and I was going to do the financial review. And the guy starts off with, well, what are your business priorities? Well, they're a publicly traded company. He goes, listen, we're publicly traded. You should know what our priorities are. I mean, he was like mad. And he goes, this meeting's over.
Mm.
I mean, it's like within
Woo.
5 or 10. So the team's, heads down walking towards elevators. I'm walking next to this guy I thought I knew. And no, then he says, this meeting's over because you guys are dumb. And so, I mean, he was, finance people, how we think. So
Yeah.
I'm next to him. I'm walking. I said, "Hey, what do you what do you mean we're dumb? I got my PhD, and I'm not saying I'm Bill Gates or someone, but I'm not dumb." He goes, "Don't understand my business. Don't understand my business." I never ever forgot that. I never wanted to be dumb again, and that's where I started this passion of like, you had, you don't want to be dumb. So your question is, what does that mean? What are my priorities, right? Am I trying to, like a lot of consumer products companies right now are saying, let's reduce expenses to put it into product development. Let's do that to grow the
Hmm.
business, right?
Right.
Um, you've got companies like TJX is a really good one where they're saying it's all about the treasure hunt, right? So if you approach them like a typical retailer, you'd be way off the mark. So
Mm-hmm.
what are my priorities? Am I trying to grow revenues? How am I trying to do that? Am I trying to expand profitability because I want to put money back in the business? So first of all, what am I trying to get accomplished, right? Financially, grow the business, expand margins, have a higher return. How am I going to do that, right? So what are my goals and what are my strategies around that? So that's one. The second thing is, well, how are they doing financially? So
Hmm.
a rather large retailer, I live here in Atlanta, and think of the color orange, but that's all I'm going to tell you. All right. And so they've got this mission of, okay, we've got to take out X number of billions of dollars. And then when you look at their financial performance, you can see their profitability is trended downwards. Like, that now makes sense, what they're trying to do. And then understand their industry, not be like a McKinsey industry expert, not to that degree, but what are the factors influencing the industry? I mean, like
Yeah.
now, it's forecasted logistics costs because of things happening in the Mid East are probably going to go up 4%, right? Well,
Hmm.
I had this goal of expanding margins. All of a sudden, I've got this industry, influence. So, what's going on in the industry? And then, like I said earlier, what are the individual stakeholders up to? So that is really being customer centric. In fact, I think I shared this with you. A good friend of mine who's a managing director at a large consulting company, and the quarterly business reviews, instead of saying, hey, where are we? We're supposed to close this much. Where are we? He always start off like, well, what are their goals? What are the progress they're making on those goals?
Hmm.
And how can we help them? So that
Hmm.
is really being, take off your sales hat and really think about the customer. And I understand, hey, we got quotas, we got all this other stuff, but really thinking about the customer first and then how you fit into that. And then what's the value, business and financial value of your solutions.
Hmm. Okay, that's super helpful in sort of bringing to life examples of what that might look like. Now let's tie that back to thought leadership, given the context of the webinar and the audience here. What role does thought leadership play in helping organizations become more customer centric?
Well, I think without it, it's not going to work, right? Because you're really asking the majority of people to fundamentally change how they think about going to market.
Hmm.
Right? So it just can't be like be customer centric. Okay, what does that even mean? Right? And
Right.
in a thought leadership role, um, how do you talk about the benefits? I mean, so for example, it's not just like what does it even mean, and providing insights from the ultimate customer. Hey, here's how we want to be sold to. So for example, in my book Insight Led Selling, I interviewed Candy Conway, who at that time was the VP of Global Operations for AT&T. What a
Hmm.
job. Unbelievable. And one of the things she said, I said, well, what does it mean to be customer centric? She said, tell me something I don't know. And I was like, Candy, you got to be, what? You're at
Right.
AT&T. You could hire every McKinsey like consulting company in the world, and you're telling me I'm supposed to come in and tell you something you don't know? She goes, yep, pretty much. So part of it is just like, tell me something I don't know. And getting back to the thought leadership, this is a huge shift for people. So I mean, to actually highlight that there's this mismatch. Look, here's what buyers want. Here's how you're selling. They're not on the same plane. What are the benefits from a relationship perspective? And I think I shared with you earlier. This is a number of years ago, but one of our clients, the lady who ran retail operations, called me one day and she was all excited. And he goes, I finally am a valued partner. I said, what? She goes, the CEO of this retail company called her and said, I'm not going to buy anything, but we want to buy this other company. What are your thoughts? So really highlighting that. I mean, what a long-term relationship that is. Not like, wait,
Yeah.
you want more storage? So
Right.
part of it is really thought leadership, leading the way, showing why this is beneficial. Because most people, especially, I go to the President Club every year. I don't need to do anything different. Well, in this new world, you better do something different. So I think a huge
Right.
role for thought leadership.
And when you look at thought leadership and the landscape of thought leadership, which has followed kind of it's grown, it's become more heterogeneous, but it's kind of followed a similar format for a long time in terms of the way it's created, in terms of what it looks like, and so forth. What do you think most organizations are getting wrong in their thought leadership? Is the problem they're selecting the wrong topic? They're not selecting customer back topics? Is it voice? Is it format? Is it dissemination delivery? Give us some examples of your
Yeah,
thoughts there.
mine is it's not thought leadership, it's opinion leadership, right?
Ah,
And that's one of the
mhm,
things I love about the Global Thought Leadership Institute. One thing I learned is you got to have some facts, right?
mhm.
And opinions are fine. You just say it's opinions, right? Here's what
Yep.
I'm sharing this based upon my experience, or this is what I think, or here's what I see. That's all great, but to me, it really needs to be fact based, and that's thought leadership. That's not opinion leadership. It's thought leadership. Which okay. So what do we want to study? How do people really want to buy?
Hmm.
What do they really want? I was working with one client and I forget what they did, enterprise asset management, and they were talking about, okay, here's our value proposition. And I knew these folks, so I'd be kind of a smart, you know what. I said, hey, here's a unique thought. Let's call it one of your clients and let's find out what they say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they called them and and they said, well, okay, what's the greatest value of our solution? They said, oh, it helps me sleep at night. If a machine goes down in the middle of the night, first thing to do is call me. I got to go down there. So the point being is that it has to be fact based. What there's a misalignment, and not just why we think there's a misalignment, but what are the clients saying about misalignment, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where the surveys are to me so important. And it doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of good advice out there. It's just like, especially being a finance type, give me the stats around it, tell me how to get there, and then being in finance, like one of the things we do is we look at, all right, using our friends at APQC, their data,
Hmm.
here's the median cross sell upsell, here's the first quartile, here's the median new customers, and what we're guesstimating is for a company with $1 billion, and this is all scalable in revenues, there's over $40 million in benefits from moving from the median to the better performers. Well, that
Hmm.
to me, that's inspiring. And you can, if you're at 100 million, just scale it accordingly.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. We think of, as you just described, fact, a solid proprietary fact base
Hmm.
as one of the three big pillars of thought leadership. There's got to be a fact base. There has to be data. The data has to be valid so that the insight, and it has to have been robustly validated so that insights can be appropriately and correctly drawn. And then another one that we use, the second pillar would be novelty. Do you have a novel perspective? And that's what you just described with this
Yeah.
AT&T executive, right? She's looking for something new. What do you have to say that I haven't seen before? And then for us, the third one is utility, usefulness. How useful is it actually? Can people put it into practice? Will they find it actually? It's not just some data without appropriate prescriptives,
Context.
but yeah, exactly. So your research also reveals that many organizations struggle to align solutions with customer
Yeah.
priorities. We just talked a little bit about that, but tell us more. Why is that, and what steps can they take to better align those solutions short of like calling up their customer and saying, "What can I do differently?" Right? Like, because that's not always it's not always a scalable solution.
There's two weeks left in the quarter. I got to close a deal. Help. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think I shared this with you, but our research showed we asked the question, how well do you align your offering solutions, whatever you want to call them, with business priorities. And 20% said we do a great job. 50% said even when we know the goals, so it's not like they're not taking the time to learn the goals or that's been shared with them. They said we struggle to align it. And then the
Mm-hmm.
remaining say, well, we still lead with feature function. We're still product based. And part of that is, and now this is my opinion. Now this is having done this for 20 something years,
Yeah.
is if you ask someone like, what does your product do? They respond with a feature function perspective. Let me give you a live example. So one of our clients, they do all the statistical analysis and forecasting and all that. And so they were engaged with this one merchandiser retailer, and they kept talking about how we can do 10,000 forecasts in 30 seconds. We can do a 4-year transformation, all this stuff. I'm like, God, anyway.
Right.
And they weren't getting anywhere. And so I said, where's this going? They said, well, they're obviously not impressed with our technology. I said, well, they only need one forecast. So I called the guy up and I said, what is it you really want? He goes, oh, we want to do better forecasting to have a higher sell-through rate so we don't write down as much inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that person couldn't articulate that. So I think part of the challenge um, is people don't think about what is the business benefit of what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I'll tell you I can do 10,000 forecasts in 1 minute. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, what I recommend people do is like lock yourself in a room and, or not, I guess lock yourself on a Zoom call, whatever.
Right.
But let's, within this industry here's like the key goals and strategies. Tell me how our solutions help that. Tell me the how, don't get into the how much yet. And I learned that from Tom Shoey. He was the CFO at Walmart when I worked with them. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd always come running in like, hey, Tom, throwing out a bunch of numbers. He's like, Steven, too much caffeine, calm down, calm down. Tell me, tell me how this is going to help. And then let's talk about the how much. So what I would encourage everyone to do is think about how, forget it, how much, how do our solutions help improve margins? How do our solutions help improve revenues? How do our solutions help mitigate risk with customer input? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is if you say, what does your solution do? It's like technology speak. It's like, well, no, I mean, that's fine, but what business benefits are there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Translating for a business audience, right?
Mhm.
So, your research also reveals that most organizations struggle with tailoring messages for individual stakeholders, which, as you've described, is super important.
Yeah.
Why do organizations struggle with that, do you think? And what steps can they take to improve?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Do you really know what you want as a merchandiser, what I want as distribution and logistics, what our CFO wants, what do the store managers want, right? So part of it is, again, not really understanding what motivates those buyers, right? Because I
Hmm.
just mentioned you may be looking at return on marketing investment, take rates. I'm in logistics. I'm looking at the cost of delivery, on-time deliveries, all those things. And we're all aligned with the same thing. So, I've shared this with you before. One size does not fit all. I mean, come in and say, okay, we can help you grow revenues.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right, right.
So again, it's having that understanding of not just what the company's trying to get done, but how these individual stakeholders, initiatives fit into that, how they're going to measure success, which is the operational KPIs provided by our friends at APQC. But anyway, um, so it's really understanding that, and it gets back to, can you tell me how this is going to help marketing? Can you tell me how this is going to help our friends in distribution and logistics as an example? But it's the same thing. Just sit down and say, okay, here's our industry. Here's the 3 people we typically sell to. Here's 2 more people we'd like to sell to. And just talk about the how statements and then get into the how much.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I love that formulation, how it will help, and then how much it will help.
Mhm.
I think that's
How?
great.
And because you think about it, and this is what Tom shared with me, is telling me the how gives me the right, maybe it's not the right word, to then talk about the how much. But if you can't tell
Hmm.
the how, you're
Right.
just making up numbers. Anyone can, you're not going to impress an executive with numbers. I can tell you that. They're just like,
Hmm.
okay, we can make up numbers with the best of them. Tell me the how
Right.
part. That's what's the most
Right.
important.
Right. I once had a consultant say to me, I've done a lot of work in life sciences. I've seen you can spin out a story out of
Oh,
data, however you please, but how are you going to make it happen? It was really funny. It was early on in my career, and I thought about that many times over the
oh.
years. Yeah.
Well, my PhD is in finance. My minor's in econometrics. And one of my favorite articles, this is the American Economic Review, is it said, let's take the con out of econometrics.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can, I mean, we've all done it. I'm not going to say I haven't done it, but in fact, the one company we worked for, we helped them build this thing was called Auto Business Case. I mean, once I found out what this company's clients wanted as an ROI and payback, that's all we need to know. We
Yeah.
we we just reversed engineer like, oh, you get your money back in 12 months, you know.
Right. Right. Okay, so I have a thought, which is the following. Um, so we're talking about one size not fitting all, right?
Correct.
Having to tailor. And um, we've talked so much about AI as enabling greater personalization. This is one of the
Yes.
great benefits that's heralded always of AI. For a while, we were even talking about N of one personalization. I don't hear that so much now as I did when AI first broke a few years
Yeah.
ago, but it's the holy grail, right? So how do you see AI enabling this personalization goal or this mapping of, how we can help with what you really need?
Yeah. 6 months ago, I would have said, be careful. Still have to be careful, but we use it every day. In fact, it's
Mhm.
embedded into some of our tools and those type of things. But yeah, I mean, it's doing a much better job of saying, I'm calling on a marketing executive. What are the three initiatives I should consider? Or I'm calling on a finance executive. So it's gotten much better about that. But like anything, okay, is this real? I mean, you got to fact check it. You just can't say, okay, I'm ready to go,
Yeah.
because even though it's gotten better, I'm impressed with it. You still have to have either the knowledge of like, well, what does marketing really want in consumer products? But it's a good starting place. Like I said, we leverage it all the time. But what I find is the challenge, and this is where to me thought leadership comes in, is all
Mhm.
right, now I know what marketing wants to talk about. Do I have the confidence to go have this conversation? So even though it's giving all of this great information, right? You still need someone or somehow to say, okay, let me help you build the confidence to go do this. And that's what cracks me up about all these LinkedIn posts about. I saw one about your company, rest in peace, McKinsey, right? Because
Yeah.
I can use AI and get it.
No.
All right, so I got the
We're
information.
we're a target. Everybody loves to say, "Oh,
Oh,
AI can do it." It's
oh well,
very
that's like our
confusing.
company. Well,
Yeah.
I don't need you guys. I can just look it up, on the internet, on the AI.
Right.
I'm like,
Right. Well, to your point
okay,
about industry context, right? How do you know what like the exogenous dynamics are that are affecting? It's not that
no,
straightforward.
no, and
Yeah.
that's like I was on a call yesterday, and the guy's been working in retail for 20 years. So when he pulls up something off a Copilot, whatever they use, I forget, he can tell, yeah, this makes sense. Oh, this just saved me some
Yeah.
time. But I'm this new person, right? I mean, I was a psychology major 6 months ago and graduated. You still need the guidance, and that's going back to some of the things that get written by you guys. I got all this information, and I'm not getting paid by McKinsey, by the way, folks. But what do you do with it? And it's just like AI is great, in my opinion, for saying I'm calling on marketing. I sell customer insight solutions. how should I think about this? But still, it's the confidence of saying, okay, yeah, here's how you engage. Here's the pushback you might get. Let me share with you the one time I was talking to the marketing executive at Home Depot or whatever it might be. So that's the part that to me with thought leadership is to say you can't automate all this stuff. And if we're going to be a serious revenue organization, there has to be the resources to help, especially these younger salespeople, whoever it might be, get to know the industry. You just can't watch as much YouTube and do as much AI as possible. Good information, but you still don't have my experience. You still don't have that competence.
Well, also, it's difficult to get to that net new perspective as well, right? I mean, we talked about novelty, we talked about the AT&T executive who's like, what new do
Right.
you say? If everybody uses AI to determine what's going to inform their conversation with a client, then how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace?
I'm not sure how you do that. If everyone
Yeah.
walks in with the same, to me, there has to be some experience saying
Yes.
that when we were working with this company, nothing confidential, but, and then, the other part is, well, if everyone is having the same information, how do you differentiate yourself? It's like it's always been. Like we're the ones that can help you, um, reduce the risk. And this is the other part that people leave out is
Hmm.
uh, my CFO friends think about salespeople as always having just a smiley face,
Hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, so your projects have never failed. Your projects have never been delayed. It's just everything's here's the ROI and here's this and that." And so part of it too is being truthful and saying, "Listen." And I tell people this all the time about my company. We know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we fully participated in the bad and the ugly. But
Hmm.
here's what we learned from that. So part of this is not, even if everyone's saying the same thing, who can help me feel better that, yeah, they're truthful and here's where it didn't work, but here's what we learned from that.
Hmm. Question on talent development, given what you were saying about folks having to gain experience and develop
Mm-hmm.
judgment that can help them contextualize what they learn from using these LLMs and so forth. I recognize you're no longer a professor of finance at Emory, but as a former professor or someone who's presumably in touch with a lot of academics,
Yeah.
how are you seeing this change for the younger generation? And are there more sort of practical hands-on experiences that are being provided? Like, how is this changing the way young business students are educated?
Yeah, well, that gets back to AI, and
Mhm.
now I've seen this more and more where you're actually using AI and interacting with an avatar or someone that looks like you and I, right?
Hmm.
So you can actually have a conversation, and this is getting better and better and better. So when it's scalable too, I forget how many times, like you got to do something 7 times before you feel
Right,
comfortable
right.
doing it.
You have to say something 7 times before someone remembers it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I've got ADD, so I get up to three, and then I'm like, oh, forget it. I'll just wing it. But anyway, no. So that's where the better universities and the better professors are leveraging AI to have this interaction because university the fewer professors per student, all those kind of things, and even the better companies that we work with are now experimenting with you know how do we use AI to have that interactivity and get assessed? Okay, so here's the 3 areas that you did okay. Here's 3 areas that not so okay. So some really really exciting stuff in that field. It's got a little ways to go, but in fact we're working on a project now. Her name is Lucy, and she can see you like when we were at the place that are
All right,
developing it.
back it up. Give us some more information on this. What does this mean she could see you? Like,
Yeah,
who is
so
this Lucy?
Lucy, she looks like anyone, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so she's a brunette, you know,
Hmm.
and so you log on, and so the day I was over there, we're doing some experimenting. The company that's working on this, his name is Steve, my name is Steven, and so I poked in like this, and he said, "Hey, Lucy, can you see me?" And she goes, "Yes." Who's with you today? So
What? Oh
Yeah,
my
and
gosh. That
oh,
is,
it's
yeah, it's uncanny. It's
oh, so
uncanny.
we're that's what we're working on because what you're finding a lot of these organizations, you've got a sales leader, and now they used to have like two or three people, now they got 10 or 12. They don't have time, right?
Hmm.
And some of the sales leader, pardon folks out there, they were really good at sales. They're really not a sales leader. So that's what we're doing is leveraging this technology because we provide a lot of information, but what we want people to do is say, how do I use this information with the chief marketing officer at TJX or whoever it might be, or Procter and Gamble.
Hmm.
So it's really, I'll show you an example. We'll catch up and I'll show you an example of this. It's just absolutely amazing.
That is really cool. They've actually made they made an avatar at my work of me and also um, a digital replica of my voice, which they sometimes use to voice things over internally
Yeah.
only as a way to just test and market. It's so strange, and everyone tells me it sounds just like me. But if I play it for my kids, for example, they say it doesn't sound anything like me. And of course, I don't think sounds like me, but people will say, "Oh, I thought that was you." It's very strange. It's uncanny. It's very
Well,
strange.
I think I share with you, I have a digital twin, and the only difference is it can speak like 100 languages. So no, I mean you can just and
Yeah,
then they have ways of okay, you went Japanese, you went Korean, went French, whatever. But
right.
yeah, we use that a lot because
Hmm.
again, we provide a lot of really insightful information, but how do you use it? And that's the job of my digital twin. It's called Learn More. How do you apply this dashboard or whatever it might be?
Right. So, I mean, this that brings up an interesting question. On the one hand, AI can enable personalization. It can allow you to speak in Japanese if you have a client that's Japanese, all these things, right? Um, but on the other hand, as we've talked about many times, uh, outreach to clients will spike given access to information using AI, particularly in thought leadership formats,
Hmm.
right? We're expecting this Cambrian explosion of slop. So, any thoughts on how to break through that slop in a customer-centric way? Because it is in fact not customer-centric to be deluged with
Right, right.
stuff, but that is what AI enables, and you're functioning
Oh,
within a competitive space, so everybody's going to be doing much of the
yeah.
same.
Well,
Any thoughts there?
yeah, I mean, it's just like the marketing agency we just signed up. They said, "Well, how many blogs do you want a day?" And it's all AI driven. And oh, you only got to
Right.
spend like 15 minutes a week to kind of prove the topics, and it's all. So, yeah,
Off to the
and
races. Yeah.
a couple of things. The people I talk to, the executives I've talked to, is like, I don't want an email from you every day, right? I appreciate the fact that you're trying to personalize it, but you still have got to get to the core of the matter. Tell me how in, a few seconds you're offering, whether it be consulting or technology or engineering, whatever it might be. Tell me once more, like how this is aligned with what I'm personally trying to get done.
Yeah.
And so, AI can help. I've seen it do some really amazing things, but there still has to be that personal element because I can tell you right now from LinkedIn, emails, oh, here's another AI agent. You know,
Hmm.
is your pipeline big enough? Can we help you? Oh, we're
Hmm.
fine. We're good. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so
Right.
it's
Right.
still making it even more personal for me, not talk about my kids and my wife and everything, but um,
Hmm.
making it more relevant, which AI is doing better, but there still has to be, and maybe I'm just old school, that kind of personal element to it. That it's not like okay, they just generated this thing and sent it out to all these other folks, except they changed the name at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I am mindful of time. Any
Okay,
final thoughts? Either on the role of thought leadership in helping organizations transform their approach to become more customer centric, or on just how to accelerate their organization's customer centric journey more broadly.
yeah. So a couple of things. One, I share with folks all the time. Just pick your couple of key industries. You could have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like a McKinsey's got dozens and dozens, but
Right, right.
if you sell into retail, focus on that. Let's say you sell into consumer products, and just do the research around, well, what are their top business priorities? What are they really trying to get done? And
Mm-hmm.
then and then get back to the how, right? Tom showed you, like, tell me how, I sell cloud, I sell BPO, I sell whatever the heck it might be. Tell me how you're going to help me accomplish these increased profitability or grow, accelerate revenue growth, whatever it might be, and then peel that back to talk about, well, who are the decision makers? And they're like, Gartner says there's 10. Well, the reality is you got a lot of influencers, but then you got a couple of folks that are really the decision makers. So once again, like, tell me how you're going to do that. From a financial perspective, right? In most industries, there's two, maybe three metrics or areas of performance that really drives the business. Start off with one. Okay, tell me how you're going to help me grow revenues. Or if I'm a bank, tell me how this is going to help me improve my cost income ratio, and start it that way, and then go to your friendlies, right, and say, look, I want to have this conversation with you, but it really has to start there. And again, getting back to thought leadership, to me, it's like, here's what people want, here's what we're actually doing, but here's how we can fill the gap, and not say we got to do it all by the end of next week.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I lied. I'm going to ask you one more question at
Okay.
the risk of going a minute or two over that just popped into my mind because you've mentioned all these, massive organizations, AT&T, the automotive manufacturer in
Yeah.
Detroit, whose first initial starts with G, et cetera, Walmart, et cetera, right? You've been working with these big organizations and you have been doing this kind of work over, I don't want to say many decades, but some
Well,
decades.
when my hair was dark, just go ahead and say it. Before you had wrinkles and you had gray hair, just say it. Go ahead.
But But like, what have you seen? I mean, it's not like customer centricity is a new principle. What have you seen? Have you seen developments overall? Have you seen positive change in a positive
Yeah.
trajectory, or is it just always a struggle?
And it's for all size companies too. Like I mentioned the
Mhm.
big ones, but we started with one company now. They had 1 billion in sales last year. We started with them when they were like 100 million, right? So
Hmm.
it's goes up and down the revenue scale, but yeah, companies still struggle with it.
Yeah.
And like I was talking to an executive of a consulting company, and he says, "Look, 20% of our people get it. The rest are still out there, like, hey, we're wonderful and all this other kind of stuff." So, um, yeah, it's still, but that's okay. I mean, I think that's you have to lead the way, saying, here's the mismatch, but here are the benefits, and that's where the statistics come in. But here's the benefits of longer relationship, greater lifetime value customer, however you want to measure it. So yeah, it continues to be one, which I'm okay with, because if it wasn't a problem, I'd have to go back to the university, and I kind of like what I do now.
Hmm. Hmm. Very quickly, question on recommendations for digital twin technology, including platforms or solutions that we use for voice only. I can tell you that we are testing 11 labs. We have not used it externally, but that's what we are testing
Yeah, and
internally.
we use a company called Simulus, Simulus, here in Atlanta, and they're the ones that are doing our digital twin. They're the one that's going to do the Lucy, all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So Simulus, look up simulus.ai.
Cool. Okay, we are at time. 1 minute over. Stephen, that was like a super rare trifecta. It was fun, it was useful, and it was different from what we usually do. Thanks so much for joining us today. And again, for more about upcoming events hosted by the Global Thought Leadership Institute, including future webinars, please visit us at the GTLI website,
The new one.
gtli.org. The beautiful new one. It's beautiful. It's like modern and cool, and I love the way it looks. You can also subscribe to our weekly GTLI newsletter for highlights of the best thought leadership of the moment, and of course, follow us on LinkedIn. Also, I just want to call your attention to this complimentary takeaway of Stephen's book. Get a free copy of it. You can get more into the topics we've been covering here. Have a
All
great
right.
day and be well.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.